In today's episode, I will be speaking with clinical sexologist Dr. Davidson. So stay tuned. He'll give us his take on whether masturbation is healthy or not. Coming up on the Love Manual podcast. Welcome to the Love Manual podcast. I'm Mel, your host. With this podcast series, I will be getting tips and advice through conversations with people in all areas from the lifestyle of love and relationships using our audio and video platforms. Feel free to interact with us by commenting below or request to be a guest by sending us an email to contact@thelovemanual.com. And now to the show. Today, I will have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Davidson, who specializes in psychotherapy, sex therapy, and coaching. Will you please help me welcome Dr. Davidson to the Love Manual? Hello, Dr. Davidson. It's so good to see you. How are you?
I'm doing well, Mel. How are you this evening?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm very fine. It's good to see you, like I said. And, I'm so honored that you allowed me to have you on the Love Manual to, have our viewers get to know a little bit about what you do and, what inspired you to become a clinical sexologist.
Well, thank you for having me on the Love Manual. I am honored to be your guest, and I love talking about my work. I began as a psychotherapist. I knew that I wanted to be a psychotherapist really early in life. In fact, I remember teachers referring to me as a sensitive child.
Oh,
And I was a sensitive child, and I am a sensitive adult. But I was the guy that would play with the kids on the playground that nobody else wanted to play with. I
wow.
was the kid that was concerned about another child who was upset or crying. And then as I got on into high school, my friends used to tease me about being their therapist. And they would call me if they were having problems with relationships with their boyfriends, their girlfriends, their parents. And I noticed that I really do enjoy helping people in this way. I'm also fascinated with how our minds work, including my own mind,
Right.
the thoughts that we think, how that influences the way we feel emotionally, and ultimately the choices that we make or our behavior. And once I became a psychotherapist, and I started this real early in life. I was practicing by the time I was 26
Wow.
and already seeing people privately by the time that I was 28. And it was right around that point that it started to move toward a specialization in sex therapy because I was discovering that when people had sexual problems in their life and they talked about them, they had tremendous shame about that,
Yeah.
and a lack of knowledge about sexuality. And there was a lot of wounding, psychological wounding, emotional wounding around sexual relationships, sexual behavior.
Mhm.
And I just felt tremendous empathy for people around that part of their life. So that prompted me to first pursue certification as a sex therapist. And I did that through an organization called the American Association of Sexuality Educators, Counselors, and Therapists.
Wow.
We call it ASECT. It's the acronym for
Hmm.
short. And then later I went back to school and got my PhD, my doctorate degree in clinical sexology.
Wow, that is interesting. And I see that you are a sensitive person just hearing what you say about, trying to help people on the playground when you were younger. And I guess that's really where it all started. And did you know that, okay, when I grow up, I want to be a therapist to help people? Or is it something that just came your way? I mean, some people will say, when I grow up, I want to be a nurse. Did you say you wanted to be a therapist when you were younger?
No, I didn't, because I really didn't even know what a therapist was at that point.
Right.
It was not until I was in college and trying to figure out what am I going to major in, that I knew that I had taken psychology classes in high school, and I enjoyed those classes, and I enjoyed reading books about psychology and human behavior, and so that's why I decided to go that route. I actually began getting a bachelor's degree in social work,
Wow.
and then went on from there and got a master's degree,
Mhm.
and pursued my license to practice psychotherapy.
That's beautiful. Yeah, definitely. The like you said, the bachelor's in social work, that alone, is a great title because social work is helping, people find out who they are and trying to help them discover things about life that you can teach them. So I really appreciate that you went further in your career and you're now a psychotherapist helping people in need because there are a lot of people that need your line of work and they just don't know. Like you said, people are shamed and they're not sure about sexuality and everything. But when they have someone like you who can actually explain these things, then it makes it a little bit more easier for them to come out and just be themselves when it's time. Because it is hard when you're not knowing of who you are and what you want and how you want it. So, someone like you, Dr. Davidson, is amazing, to help these people understand what sex is all about. So, I'm sorry. You
Well, thank you. I
No
appreciate
problem.
that.
Thank you. I want to ask you, a lot of people say what is normal in life and relationships. What do you think about that? What do you think is normal in life and relationships?
I do get that question a lot, and
Mhm.
sometimes people list that as their goal. I have a questionnaire that I have them to fill out before the first appointment, and sometimes people will just list that as their goal. I want to feel normal. I want to be normal. I want to have a normal marriage. I want to have a normal relationship or a normal sex life.
Mhm.
And normal is not one of our favorite words as
Right.
psychotherapists,
Mhm.
because it implies that there's a lot of other things that are not normal.
Right.
And normal really does exist on a very broad continuum, a broad spectrum
Mhm.
of human behavior and human thoughts that are influenced by a lot of things like our gender identity,
Mhm.
our sexual orientation, our culture that we grow up in, what part of the world we grow up in, what time period we are living in, our family background, our genetics, our biology.
Right.
So, all of those things influence the way we think and behave, including how we behave in relationships, whether it's just in a relationship with coworkers and friends or it's a sexual relationship. So, there are lots of factors that influence that behavior, and to quickly throw people into a bucket and call it normal or abnormal is really unfair, and it's not good science.
I agree. Normal is just normal to you and or the other person that's thinking, okay, am I normal or not? What is normal? Like you said, what is normal? So your normal is your normal. And I like that, you can help people understand that it's okay to be yourself. And that's what normal is all about. So why do you think that people confuse love, sex, and intimacy?
Well, our culture kind of teaches us that they are supposed to all go together. Um, you know, if you look at love stories, romance novels, even fairy tales, yeah, they always end with people living happily ever after, or
Mhm.
there's some expectation of you fall in love and you always stay in love, and that's how it's going to be for the rest of your life. Or
Right.
that if you find Mr. Right or Miss Right, that person is always going to be right for you.
Right.
So our culture doesn't give us a lot of factual information about relationships, love, sex, intimacy. And those are really different concepts.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of sex, sex is an activity.
Mhm.
And sometimes sex is a way of expressing intimacy.
Right.
Sometimes it's intimate sex, but most of the sex that happens in the world is not intimate.
Mm.
It's recreational, it's
Mhm, yeah.
transactional, it's obligatory, it's performance.
Mhm.
So, people have sex for a lot of different reasons, and they think that if they're having sex, that they are engaged in intimacy, but sometimes it's not really very intimate at all.
Wow.
So, intimacy is really about being vulnerable with someone, trusting them enough that you can be authentic, that you can
Mhm.
just be yourself,
Mm.
that you can tell the truth,
Right.
that you can be accepted as you are. That's what intimacy is. And sometimes we have sexual relationships with
Mhm.
people that we have intimate relationships with, but sometimes we have intimate relationships that are not sexual at all.
Mm. Wow.
And then love, well, what is that? We love our cat, we love our dog, we love our mom, we love warm sunny days, we love Christmas, we love
Mhm.
chocolate. And so when we say we love, what does that really mean in the context of a relationship?
Right.
So when I work with couples, I coach them on the language they use and how to understand their partner's language. So if they're just having sex, I ask them to define what kind of sex they're having. Let's not call it intimacy if it's not intimate.
Right.
Um, it,
Absolutely.
yeah, to help people be more mindful and more thoughtful about the language that they're using and what's really happening in the relationship.
Wow. That was a nice breakdown and very understandable. And a lot of people need to understand exactly what you said about having sex, making love, intimacy. Both some of them sometimes they don't go together and sometimes it does. So that's good. What do you think that couples can do to regain the intimacy in their relationship?
Well, when you say regain, that implies that they had it and they lost it.
Right.
Uh,
Absolutely.
so first, I want to understand, why did you lose it?
Right.
What happened that caused you to lose that intimacy? And if there's some damage that's been done there, that has to be healed.
Yeah.
We have to be able to work through that and forgive and move to the other side of it.
Right.
I use a concept with clients that I talk about truth tolerance. How much can your relationship tolerate honesty?
Mhm.
And, if there's been an affair or there's been
Mhm.
some kind of deceit or betrayal, the one that was deceived or cheated on feels really angry at the other one because you lied to me, you deceived me. And that's all understandable, but I will turn it around a little bit and ask, why is it, do you think that person didn't trust you with the truth?
Mhm.
Um, and I say it that way to get people to stop and think about, am I really someone that my partner can tell me anything? Am I safe with the truth?
Right.
Am I open to my partner coming to me and saying, "Hey, there are things in our relationship that I don't like,"
Mm.
or "I want you to listen to me more," or "I want you to spend more time with me." And if you keep shutting that down, then you're shutting down your partner's truth. You're shutting down their attempts to be honest with you. And so that's what I mean by truth tolerance. Can the relationship really tolerate these two people being honest with each other?
Right. I agree 100%. And honesty, like, the saying goes, is the best policy. But when you're in a relationship and you're not able to be truthful or be yourself, then what do you have in that relationship? And I'm glad that you did bring up infidelity. So, do you think that infidelity can be forgiven? And then what happens after that? And how should two people cope with that situation?
Well, I've got several cases currently that are dealing with infidelity, and I've worked with a lot of couples on this subject in the past. Uh, yes, I do think couples can recover from it, and I have witnessed people forgiving their partner for infidelity.
Mm.
But you know, not every personality is a forgiving personality. Some people
Mhm.
have a harder time with forgiveness than others.
Right.
And that's not just about forgiving their partner. It might be about forgiving friends who they got angry at, forgiving a coworker that they had a conflict with. Some people just have a hard time forgiving, letting go, and moving on.
Right.
And so I would ask that person, what's your history with forgiveness?
Right.
What experience have you had with this? What other times in your life have you felt deceived or betrayed? And how did that work out for you? um, are you going to be able, do you think you're going to be able to forgive your partner, and what will it take?
Yeah.
Uh, and that process of repair can move very slowly,
Yeah.
especially if the deceit had been going on for a long time or there were multiple examples of it.
Yeah. And that's a good point that you made about some people not being able to forgive not only their partners in a relationship, but just people in general because of, I guess, their history of maybe, some of the things that they've gone through. So it could be like a trauma to them as far
Yeah.
as trying, yeah, to forgive. So this is definitely on another note, but I wanna know, do you think what do you think about masturbation? Is it healthy? Is it unhealthy? I mean, what are your takes on that whole situation there?
Well, there's actually a lot of research that demonstrates that it is healthy. We know that it is normal, and that it's typical. We know that people across all cultures, all aspects of the world,
Mm,
self pleasure, masturbate, uh, men and women.
mhm.
Men historically have been given more permission. It's been excused more with men than it has been with women.
I
That's
agree.
yes, and that has changed a lot
I
since
agree.
since the '60s. Women are increasingly liberated and given
Yeah,
permission to enjoy their bodies.
absolutely.
And it's important that you know your body, that you know what feels pleasurable to
Mhm.
you, because you need to communicate that to your partner. Through masturbation, we get all kinds of sensory information in
Yes.
our own mind and our own nerve endings in our own body that our
Mhm.
partner cannot feel what our experience is. And
Absolutely.
we need to be able to communicate that to our partner so that we know whether to say faster, slower.
There, not there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
Uh,
understandable.
and so, if you don't know your own body, you can't really know how to coach your partner about what feels good, what feels safe, and what doesn't.
Yes.
And in terms of men, there's been lots of research around prostate health that
Mhm.
men who ejaculate 2 to 3 times a week have lower rates of prostate cancer than men who don't. And so that might be through sexual intercourse, or it might be through masturbation.
Wow.
Also through orgasm. There are lots of natural neurochemicals that are released in the brain that cause us to feel good.
Mm.
Uh, Dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin, oxytocin. Those are all chemicals that are released when we are having sex with ourselves or sex with a partner that cause us to have a sense of pleasure, a sense of contentment, happiness,
Mhm.
and just overall feeling well.
Yes. Wow. Well said. And like you stated previously, it is important for a man and a woman to know their own bodies in order to let their partner know what they like and what they want. Because if you don't know your body, then how could you explain it to someone else? Okay, yes, I like
Right.
this, but you're not sure if you like it because you don't know. But if
Right.
you explore your own body and, the men explore theirs, then we'll be able to communicate that a little bit better during intimacy and love and sex in the bedroom. So I think that that was well said, Dr. Davidson. That was
Thank you. I've been asked that question before, to be quite honest.
well, I like the answer. And I'm pretty sure a lot of our viewers are going to like it and our listeners. So when people are trying to date right now, what advice would you give them? What advice?
Well, dating is already difficult before we were in the middle of a pandemic. So people ask for dating advice frequently, even before the pandemic. Now, many people are just choosing not to date because it's too stressful.
Yeah.
And we all have to assess our own degree of risk that we are willing to take.
Mhm.
Um, so, some people are just not dating now.
Right.
Some people are finding ways to date with moderate risk, like meeting at outdoor cafes
Mhm.
or going for a walk in the park or a walk on the beach together, or meeting in some public outdoor space,
Yes.
um, because we've been told that being outside is certainly safer than being inside.
Yeah.
Some of my clients who use apps like um, Tinder or Scruff or any number of other dating apps tell me that their use of those has changed, that they're actually having more conversation
Yeah.
with people on those because they are not hooking up and they're not planning a date that's going to happen sometime in the next 24 to 48 hours.
Right.
So, a few of my clients have said, I'm actually learning how to just build a relationship with someone before having sex with them. So, that's something that's kind of a positive
Mhm.
advantage of
Yeah.
this. So, I hope that we're going to be out of this soon with the vaccine that's going to be made available to us.
Yeah.
But I don't know when we'll be able to resume dating activity in the way that we could in the past.
Right. And I think that is really important for people to get to know each other anyway, even without the pandemic, because a lot of people just jump right into relationships and not even knowing what you're getting into just because you see the shell. So I think that
Right.
is really important for people to go in depth and find out, okay, this person I actually can confide in and be myself with, because that's another hard thing about getting into relationships now. You don't know if you could be yourself around this person, and you want to be able to just be free.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think that conversation is definitely important when getting to know people. So if anyone was trying to find you, where can they find you? I'm pretty sure there's going to be more questions, and we want Dr. Davidson back on. So where can they find you?
Well, you can go to my website. It's drstevendavidson.com. So it's Dr. Steven, Steven, Davidson.com, or you can find me on Facebook under the Sexual Integrity Coach on Facebook.
Wow. I so appreciate you joining me today, and I sure would love to have you back on again and have some more questions answered because I know that the viewers and listeners are going to want to hear what you have to say. And I really appreciate you taking your time out and joining me at the Love Manual today.
Thank you, Mal. I've enjoyed it and I would love to come back. There's a lot of things you and I didn't talk about tonight that we
I
could
know.
cover at another time.
Oh, we're definitely going to cover those because I know they want to know because I want to know. Well, thank you so, so much. And you enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll chat soon, okay?
All right. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you guys so much for joining us at the Love Manual. And until next time, take care.